It was the last day of year 10, and the halls of our school buzzed with the chaotic mix of excitement and final day madness. You know, kids stuffing each other in bins, silly string flying down corridors, teachers pretending not to notice the more harmless stuff. I wasn't part of any prank team or anything like that, but my mates and I were doing our fair share of harmless mischief. I mostly kept my head down until that scream. It wasn't the kind of scream you hear in a movie. It wasn't loud and dramatic, it was thin, desperate, real. I was grabbing my pay kit from my locker when I heard it. At first, I thought it was one of the girls down the hall, but it came from behind me, from the other end of the corridor, from locker 119. Now, this locker had a reputation. Every school has one. You know the story, someone died there, or a ghost lives in it, whatever. In our case, it was just known as the locker that screamed. It had been welded shut years ago. The school claimed it was broken and dangerous, but everyone said it used to belong to a student who disappeared in the 70s, never confirmed, but always whispered. When I turned around, I saw Rhea standing about 10 feet from it, frozen. Her face had gone pale, like she'd seen something she wasn't meant to. She looked at me and mouthed, "Did you hear that?" I nodded slowly. It happened again. That scream, but shorter, choked off like someone being silenced mid-breath. No one else seemed to notice. Most of the kids were outside by then, and the teachers were distracted with keeping order during the prank cleanup. Rhea walked up to the locker, almost like she was being pulled. I followed, even though everything in my body told me not to. "Do you think someone's inside?" I asked, immediately regretting the question. She didn't answer. Her fingers traced the edge where the locker door met the frame. "You feel that?" she whispered. I stepped closer. The metal was vibrating, just slightly like a heartbeat. I looked at Rhea, and for a second, I thought I saw tears forming in her eyes, but she blinked them away. Then she grabbed a hairpin from her bag and started fiddling with the lock. "Are you serious?" I hissed. "You're actually going to open it?" "I need to," she said. "I don't know why. I feel like it's calling me." I should have stopped her, but something in her voice made me shut up and stand guard instead. It took her less than a minute. The lock clicked open with a quiet snap, and the door creaked forward an inch on its own. The smell hit us first, old iron rot, and something else, something sickly sweet that made my stomach churn. Rhea covered her mouth, but she didn't back away. She pulled the door fully open and stepped aside so I could see. Inside was a uniform mold style, brown and faded, with a patch that had the school crest from decades ago. It was soaked in dry, dark stains. Blood next to it. A worn leather-bound diary sat tucked into the corner, almost lovingly placed. A name was scratched into the inside of the locker door. Avery Shaw. Rhea looked like she'd been punched in the gut. She reached for the diary with trembling hands and flipped it open. I looked over her shoulder, both of us reading the same words. September 14th, 1978. Ms. Doyle said I should be proud of who I am, but when I told the others, they called me a freak. "I don't think I can come back tomorrow," but Ms. Doyle said she'd talk to the headmaster. I hope she means it. We turned a few pages. The entries got darker. Avery writing about being cornered in the locker room, about threats scrawled on her desk, about someone unnamed saying she was a disease. And then, the last entry, October 3rd. Ms. Doyle told me to keep quiet, said it would cause too many problems if I made a fuss, said she'd handle it, that I should stay late and we'd talk after class. I waited, but she never came. I heard footsteps. Then the locker swung open. Then nothing. Just a smear across the page. We backed away, both shaking. I didn't know what to say. My brain couldn't make sense of it. But Rhea, she didn't hesitate. She snapped a photo of the diary, the uniform, everything. "We need to go to the head office," she said. I followed her in a daze. We barged in mid-conversation, where Ms. Doyle, our current form tutor, was laughing with another teacher. She looked surprised, then a little annoyed. "We found something," Rhea said, her voice tight. I held out the diary. Ms. Doyle stared at it, then at us. Her expression shifted, almost imperceptibly. I caught it, something between recognition and fear. "Where did you get that?" she asked, too quickly. "The locker," I said. "Locker 119. She froze. That locker was sealed off years ago, for a reason. You knew her, Rhea said. Avery Shaw, you were her teacher. The room was silent. Even the other teachers slowly stepped back. Ms. Doyle sat down heavily. I was fresh out of university. It was my first job. Avery was bright, brave, to brave for this place. You told her to stay quiet, Rhea said. She wrote it down. Tears filled Ms. Doyle's eyes. I told her I'd protect her. I begged the headmaster to intervene, but they said she was a disruption. They told me it would be dealt with. I didn't know. She broke off. I didn't know they meant to silence her. You left her there, Rhea said, shaking. I thought I was helping, Ms. Doyle whispered. I thought they'd talk to her parents, maybe expel her. I didn't think they'd kill her, I said. Saying it made my throat dry. They killed her. We walked out. I don't remember what happened next exactly. I just remember sirens that afternoon. Someone had called the police. Maybe one of the staff. Maybe Ms. Doyle herself. But by the time the rest of the students were dismissed, investigators were pulling rusted locker doors off their hinges and taping off the hallway. The diary was verified. So were the bloodstains on the uniform. Tests later matched the DNA to Avery's only living relative, an older sister, who had left the country decades ago, convinced Avery had simply run away. The school tried to keep it quiet at first, but when the local paper got hold of it, the story exploded, not just because of the murder, but because it uncovered a systematic effort by the old administration to hide discrimination and violence against queer and trans students during the 70s and 80s. Avery wasn't the only one harassed. She was just the one who vanished. Rhea didn't stop there. She gave interviews, shared the diary pages on social media, spoke at community meetings. At first, some people tried to discredit her, claimed we planted the diary, made it all up. But then former students started coming forward. People who remembered Avery, people who remembered how she was treated. Within 3 months, the school was shut down pending a full investigation. Ms. Doyle resigned. Though she cooperated with the inquiry, she gave names, she gave statements. She even helped locate other documents that had been hidden. I kept thinking about that scream, that one sound that started it all. It wasn't a ghostly cry or some horror cliche. It was a warning, a call for someone to finally listen. Rhea didn't just listen, she acted. It's been a few years now. That building's gone, torn down and replaced with a youth center named after Avery. Rhea works there now, part-time, alongside finishing her social work degree. She says it helps to give kids a place where they're safe to be who they are. Me, I still think about that day, about how close we came to walking away, how easy it would have been to dismiss it as another weird school myth. But that scream was real. So was Avery, and so is the justice that finally came 40 years too late. But better late than never. I guess sometimes the past doesn't stay buried. Sometimes it waits for the right person to open the door. Story number 2: Cassie still won't talk about that night. Not really. Not the details anyway. If you ask her, she'll just shake her head and tell you that the live stream was taken down years ago and no copies exist. But I watched it. I watched it live. I saw Dylan vanish with my own eyes, dragged backward off the screen. His mouth open in a scream we never heard. It started off as a joke. That's always how these things start, right? The Brisbane High Ghost Dare. Our school was shutting down after the term, being demolished to make way for a new sports complex. A bunch of Year 12s started daring each other to spend a night in the places. Everyone said were haunted. The toilets near the back oval, the tech block basement. But the ultimate dare was the auditorium. Everyone knew the story. Some version of it, at least, that in the early 1980s, a beloved music teacher, Ms. Keene, vanished during rehearsals for the end-of-year concert. She never clocked out. Her car was still parked out front. Her handbag left on the piano bench. No one ever found her. But some students claimed they'd heard piano music drifting out of the locked auditorium. In the years since, one cleaner said she saw a figure sitting at the baby grand when she knew no one else was there. The official line was that Ms. Keene walked away from her job, but nobody believed that. Dylan said the whole thing was a joke. It's just old people trying to scare kids, he said. but he knew how to make a moment go viral. He had a decent following online, and when someone dared him to livestream a night in the auditorium, he leaned in hard. "Let's say goodbye to Brisbane High with a proper farewell," he joked. "Let's see if the ghost of Ms. Keene wants a final duet." He invited Cassie and me to come, but she wasn't having it. "Don't mock the dead," she said, more serious than usual. "Just don't." So Dylan went alone. The live stream started just after 9 p.m. I was watching from home, lying on my bed, earbuds in. Cassie messaged me a few minutes in. He actually went through with it. She was watching too, even though she'd said she wouldn't. It started simple. Dylan panned the camera across the stage and rows of dusty red chairs, cracking jokes. He walked around the backstage area, pointing out bits of graffiti and leftover props. Then he sat on the edge of the stage with the camera facing him. "All right, internet," he said. "We're going dark for a bit, turning off the lights. Let's see if we get a ghostly lullaby or just me peeing myself." He laughed and flipped the switch. The screen dimmed to grainy gray from his phone's night mode. I watched as he sat in silence, trying to look casual. But after a few minutes, something shifted. He leaned forward, squinting at the screen. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. At first, I thought he was messing around, but then he turned his head slowly. There was a sound, faint, like fingers brushing over piano keys. A single, soft note. He stood up and turned the camera toward the stage. Nothing, empty. The piano was there, half covered with a tarp. Then a second note, a third. Cassie messaged, "I don't like this." Dylan moved closer to the piano. "Hello?" he called. "Ms. Keene." Another note. He reached for the tarp, hesitating for a moment, then pulled it off. The piano was closed, dusty, untouched. He laughed nervously, probably just settling wood or something. But his laugh didn't sound right. He was trying to play it cool, but I knew him. He was rattled. He sat back down and tried to keep streaming, reading comments, and responding. But the noises didn't stop. Footsteps across the stage, a chair scraping on its own. At one point, the lights in the wings flickered on for a split second, then cut out again. And then came the voice. It was faint, so faint I almost thought I imagined it. But it was there. A woman's voice, soft and strained, like someone singing. "From underwater. Farewell, my darlings." Dylan stood up again, spinning around with the camera. "Who's there?" he shouted. "This isn't funny." No answer. He turned the camera on himself. His face was pale now, no smirk. "Okay, I think I'm done. This was fun. Let's wrap up." He started walking toward the exit, and that's when the screen began to glitch. You could hear the distortion, crackling audio, like someone dragging a mic across gravel. Then the piano lid slammed open behind him. He spun around, screamed something I couldn't make out, and the camera dropped. The phone landed face up on the stage floor, showing a crooked view of the rafters. For a few seconds, we heard his footsteps running, then stopping, heavy breathing, and then nothing. For maybe 10 seconds, it was just the sound of silence and the static hum of a live feed. Then came the moment burned into my brain from off-screen. A hand, long, pale, thin, snatched into view and dragged the phone violently to the left. Just before the camera flipped, we saw Dylan's shoes. He was being pulled backward across the stage, his arms flailing. His mouth was open in a silent scream. And then the stream went dark. I couldn't move. I stared at my phone for at least a minute, waiting for it to come back. Cassie called me. Seconds later, I could barely speak. "We have to go," she said. "We have to go there, now." Her brother drove us. We got to the school around 10:30. Security had already arrived. Someone watching the stream had called the police. A crowd had gathered outside the locked gates. Teachers, students, parents. But the auditorium was sealed off. They searched all night. And the next morning, no sign of Dylan. They brought in dogs, drones, everything. The official report claimed there was no evidence of foul play, that the livestream was a prank, some clever effects, but no one who watched it believed that. Not really. Cassie didn't give up. She knew something was wrong with the story. 2 weeks later, she came to me with her theory. "He didn't get taken by a ghost," she said. "Not just a ghost. She'd been digging into Ms. Keene's disappearance. She found an old newspaper clipping tucked into an archived student newsletter. It mentioned that Principal Ford had just been promoted the same year Ms. Keene vanished. Before that, they'd worked together closely on music programs. One article even hinted at a disagreement over budget cuts. And then there was a line in the staff minutes written 1 week before she disappeared, where Ms. Keene accused Ford of endangering student well-being and threatened to go to the education board. Cassie showed me the building blueprints she'd found online. There was a crawlspace under the stage, meant for cables and acoustics, but it had been sealed off after 1982. No reason given. She contacted a journalist, a real one this time, told her everything: the stream, the notes, the voice, the crawlspace. 2 days later, the police got a warrant. They pulled up the floorboards, and they found her, a skeleton, curled up in the corner of the crawlspace, still dressed in fragments of a long skirt and blouse. One arm broken, probably defensive. A hair clip still tangled in gray strands. Dental records confirmed it. Ms. Keene. Principal Ford was arrested. He was living in a retirement village not far from the coast. He didn't say much, just kept repeating, she threatened everything. She couldn't be allowed to ruin it. He'd killed her during an argument, panicked, hid the body beneath the stage, and left her there for 2 decades. While the school went on, while he got promoted, retired, got awards, there was no trace of Dylan under that stage. No blood, no clothing, nothing. The police tried to say he ran away, that it was unrelated. But no one bought that. Not after seeing that stream. Cassie stopped talking about it publicly after that. She helped Ms. Keene's remaining family organize a memorial. Quiet, respectful, no media. Just a piano piece played in her memory, and a plaque set near the rebuilt campus. As for Dylan, his profile stayed up for a while, then quietly vanished. His videos gone, his name slowly erased. But I remember the look on his face. That last second before he was taken. I remember the sound of the piano notes, like they were calling to someone. Sometimes I think about the voice that sang. In the darkness, not angry, not vengeful, just forgotten. I think that's why she pulled him in. Because someone finally listened. Because someone finally stayed long enough to hear her final song. And sometimes, late at night, when I can't sleep, I wonder if he's still there, beneath the stage. Not in body, but in memory, in echo, and I wonder if somewhere, he's still listening. Story number 3. I never imagined graduation day would feel like a funeral. I don't mean that in a poetic way, I mean it literally. That was the day I saw Owen in the background of a photo, standing just behind our class, smiling like he'd never died. The worst part, I knew exactly why he was there. It had been almost a year since Owen jumped. Everyone said it was unexpected, a tragedy. The kind of thing schools put out emails about while pretending no one knew what really happened. But we all knew. Jamie knew. I knew. I just didn't do anything when it counted. I remember the day so clearly. Graduation was hours away. Everyone was buzzing, posing for pictures, decorating caps. I couldn't breathe. The guilt had been building for months, but I kept telling myself I could leave it behind. That once I walked that stage, it would all go away. Then I saw Jamie, sitting alone on the bleachers behind the gym. They were wearing their gown already, headphones in, staring at the floor, and something inside me broke. I sat next to them and said, I need to tell you something. They didn't look up. If this is about Owen, I already know. No, I said, not everything. I told Jamie what I'd never told anyone, that the day Owen got pushed into the lockers smashed so hard, he had a nosebleed. I'd been there. That Mr. Leo had seen it too. That when Owen reported it and named names, Leo pulled me aside and said, you didn't see anything, right? And I said no. I told myself I was protecting my future, that it wasn't my fight, that if the teachers didn't care, it wasn't my responsibility. But a week later, Owen stopped coming to school. A month after that, we found out he'd jumped from the Lions Gate Bridge. When I finished talking, Jamie finally looked at me. Their face was unreadable. Why now? They asked. Why tell me this today? Because I can't walk that stage pretending I'm clean. And I knew you. I stopped myself. You were one of the only people who was ever decent to him. You deserve the truth." Jamie didn't say anything else, just stood up and walked away. I sat there for a long time. Then came the ceremony. It felt unreal, standing in the crowd with my cap on, trying to smile as they played the music, and we filed into our rows. The principal made the usual speech. The valedictorian tried to make us cry. Parents clapped and cheered. But something felt wrong. The first photo came from Jamie. They posted it to their story, a selfie with the caption, "Graduation, finally." But in the mirror behind them, in the upper corner of the frame, Owen stood by the door, same denim jacket, same shaggy hair, eyes locked on the camera. I dropped my phone. I told myself it had to be a mistake, a lookalike, a glitch. But then the next one appeared, a group shot, taken by one of the teachers, 10 students lined up in front of the trophy case. And there, reflected in the glass, was Owen, closer now, smiling faintly. I texted Jamie, "Did you see it?" They replied instantly, "I know, you're not the only one. We met behind the science building an hour later." They were shaking. "There's another one," they said, showing me their phone. A photo Leo had just posted with the staff. Owen stood beside him, hand on his shoulder. "I don't know what this is," Jamie whispered, "but he's not just showing up in random pictures. He's following someone." "What do you mean?" "I think he's following you." I didn't want to believe it. But then my mom sent me a photo she'd taken from the bleachers, me hugging my friends after the ceremony. And there he was again, Owen, right behind me. His mouth slightly open, not smiling, not angry, just present, as if he never left. That's when I knew this wasn't just some trick of the light. He was here, with me. I went home early, skipped the after party. I sat on my bed, scrolling through every photo I'd taken that week, and I started seeing him everywhere. Barely visible sometimes, but always there, in my peripheral, like he'd been watching. Then came the text from Jamie, "You need to fix this." I didn't know how. The school had already moved on. No one said Owen's name anymore. The counselors gave one assembly, then never mentioned it again. His locker was cleaned out and reassigned. They pretended he never existed, but I couldn't pretend. Not anymore. I called Leo. It took 3 tries before he picked up. I could hear music and laughing. In the background, he sounded buzzed. "I need to talk to you," I said. He sighed. "Amara, it's graduation. Can it wait?" "No," I said. "It really can't." To his credit, he met me. We sat in his classroom, the lights dimmed, party noise still faint through the walls. I told him everything. Again, he didn't deny any of it. Just sat there, looking tired. "You were a kid," he said finally. "You didn't know what would happen, but you did," I said. "You knew he was hurting. You saw what they did to him." Leo looked away. "It wouldn't have changed anything. The system." "Stop," I said. "Just stop." I showed him the photos. His face drained of color. "He's not haunting you," I said. "Not yet. But he's here, and I think no. I know he wants something." Leo stood slowly. "What do you expect me to do? Announce I failed as student? That I let him die?" "Yes," I said. "That's exactly what I expect." He left. I sat in that empty room, knowing no one would believe me. Not unless I did something real. Not unless I made it public. So I did. I took the stage at the after party. Someone had set up a mic for karaoke, and I just took it. "I need everyone to listen for a second," I said. Voices died down. Phones came out. "I need to say something about Owen Bell." That name hit like a stone. The room went still. I was there when he was bullied. I saw what they did to him, and I stayed quiet. I helped cover it up, because I didn't want to lose my scholarships, because I thought it didn't matter. I looked around, but it did. He's dead, and we let it happen. I felt tears in my eyes, but kept going. He's not gone. Not really. He's still here, in our pictures, in our silence, and he won't leave until we admit what we did. I stepped down after that. No applause, no reaction, just stunned silence. I left that night. For the first time in almost a year, I slept. When I woke up, my phone had blown up. Messages, screenshots, news articles. Jamie had posted my confession video. It had gone viral. But more than that, something had changed. The school made a statement the next day. They admitted there had been failures, that bullying wasn't properly handled, that a teacher had been placed on leave pending investigation, that they were launching an initiative in Owen's name. The photos stopped. Every single image where Owen had appeared, gone, wiped. It was like he'd never been there at all. Except he had. Jamie and I went to his old locker that afternoon. Someone had placed flowers there, a single note pinned to the vent. I see you now. Thank you. I carry that moment with me every day. Graduation didn't mark the end of school for me. It marked the end of pretending, the end of hiding behind fear, and the beginning of trying to live with what I should have done sooner. Story number 4. I was 12 the year kids started vanishing from our school in Munich. I've never told anyone this story, not properly, not all of it, because even now, decades later, I still wake up sweating from dreams of that sound. The bell, not the normal one, the extra ring, the one that came too late. It started on a Tuesday. I remember because we had Frau Grunwald for math, and she always made us recite multiplication tables before class. That day, I was sitting next to Lucas, who was 4 years older and not even in our class officially. He'd been held back once and had a reputation, not for being mean, more for knowing things he shouldn't. Everyone said his older brother had died in the war, though that didn't add up, time-wise. Still, Lucas had this knowing look about him, like he could see things the rest of us didn't. The first time the bell rang wrong, it didn't seem like much. We were packing up our bags, waiting for the usual dismissal bell. It rang once, clear and sharp, like always. Everyone started standing, shuffling, heading toward the cloakroom. But then it rang again, a second chime, 5 seconds after the first. Just one, too late to be a double ring, too soon to be a mistake. Some of us paused. A few teachers looked up. I remember Frau Grunwald froze mid-step and muttered something under her breath, in a dialect I didn't recognize. But no one said anything. Not that day. The next morning, the empty seat in our class was just chalked up to illness. Then another boy didn't show up the day after that, and a girl from Lucas's grade. All of them had been seen leaving the building right after that second bell. I noticed Lucas watching the doors that week. He wasn't loud about it, just quiet and alert. On Friday, he pulled me aside by the lockers. You heard it, right? He asked. The bell. He nodded. Don't leave when it rings twice, no matter what. Wait 5 minutes. Always. I laughed a little. Why? They're not going home. It sounded ridiculous, but something about the way he said it made my stomach twist. Like he wasn't joking. Like he'd seen something I hadn't. That afternoon, the bell rang normally. We all left, but on Monday, it rang twice again. I stayed. I pretended to tie my shoes for a while, then wandered back toward the classroom like I'd forgotten something. Frau Grunwald was still there, organizing papers with trembling hands. When she saw me, she didn't scold me like usual. She just said, "You stayed." I nodded. She looked out the window, toward the old courtyard where the war memorial stood. "That's good," she said softly. "That's very good." The next day, Lucas was waiting for me at lunch. "There's something under the school," he said. "A door. I found it years ago, in the old boiler hallway, like a basement." He shook his head. "Lower than that. I think it used to be an air raid shelter, but it goes deeper. You ever hear about what they did during the war? Bomb drills?" He gave me a grim look. "No, the other stuff. Experiments, hidden things." I told him he was being dramatic. He didn't argue. He just said, "Come with me after school. I'll show you." So I did. We waited until the final bell rang. Once, then again. Instead of leaving, we ducked behind the west stairwell and slipped through a maintenance door I'd never noticed before. It led down into a narrow stone corridor. The air felt older down there. He led me past rusted pipes and dusty boxes until we reached a heavy metal door with a strange black smear across its surface, like soot that had never been cleaned. Lucas pulled out a key. I never asked where he got it. It creaked open, and the smell hit me first. Old earth, rust, and something faintly metallic. Blood, maybe. The room beyond was lined with benches and coat hooks, like a bunker. But the walls were covered in carvings, marks scratched deep into the concrete. Names, symbols, dates. And then the bell rang again. But this time, it wasn't. From above, it echoed from inside the room. We both froze. Lucas grabbed my arm, whispering, "That's not the school bell. That's the other one." A light flickered to life at the far end of the corridor. We turned to run, but the door slammed shut behind us. I remember pounding on it, screaming. No one heard. Lucas pulled me back and said we had to go the other way. We followed the flickering light into a side passage I hadn't noticed before. It sloped downward, too far. The air got colder, the stones slick with moisture. As we moved, the walls began to shift, less concrete, more something else like petrified wood or bone. I swear it pulsed, almost like it was breathing. We reached a room lit by a single hanging bulb. It swung gently, though there was no wind. In the center of the room was a large metal hatch, half open like a trapdoor. Scratches lined its edge. Lucas leaned in. "They go through there," he said. "I think that's where they disappear." I looked around. There were school bags piled in the corner, shoes, a scarf I recognized from the missing girl. "Are they still alive?" I asked. Lucas didn't answer. His face was pale. "I don't know, but if they are, they're not here." I wanted to run. I should have, but something in me needed to know. I stepped toward the hatch. That's when I heard it. A voice, clear and soft, from the other side of the opening. "Thomas," my name. It sounded like my mother. I leaned closer, and the voice came again, but wrong this time, like it was breaking apart, slurred. Too many echoes. "Thomas." Lucas yanked me back just as a hand shot out of the hatch. Not a normal hand. Thin, gray, fingers like wire. It grasped the floor, then reached for me. We ran. I don't even remember how we got back to the stairwell. The door was open this time. Frau Grunwald was waiting. She didn't ask us where we'd been, just nodded once and said, "Good, now you know." She told us everything. The bunker was real, built during the war, then expanded in secret by someone who believed children were keys to something. She never said exactly what. Some dimensional theory, she muttered, half bitter. The Nazis had used the school for more than just hiding from bombs. They wanted to go somewhere else. They used children to test the gateway. The bell, she said, was part of it. A signal, a trigger. But it didn't close, Lucas said. Why not? Because it was never meant to. She said they wanted to leave it open for others to come through. We told her about the hatch, the hand, the voice. Her face tightened. "That wasn't your mother," she said quietly. "It only sounds like them. It learns." The next day, she called the city authorities, said she'd discovered structural instability in the basement. The school shut down for 2 weeks. When we returned, the stairwell was sealed, new walls, new locks, and the bell never rang twice again. But the disappearances didn't stop immediately. One more kid vanished the week after, a boy who snuck in through a maintenance tunnel. That was the last one. They poured concrete into the old shelter. I later learned records were destroyed. The school moved on. Years later, in university, I found a paper trail, just bits of it. Old maps, lab notes, the name of a project I'd never seen before. Kinderspiegel, Child Mirror. I stopped digging after that. I don't go back to Munich much, but every so often I hear bells. On the train, in a dream. Once in an elevator that rang twice without stopping. Each time, I remember the voice from the hatch, the hand, the sound of the bell that shouldn't have rung. And I wonder who's listening now.